Hey everybody. This past week, both Lauren and I were out of the country as part of what we jokingly referred to as No One's Here November. And to celebrate that internationality, remember how a few weeks ago we released a story about me being drunk in Canada? And do you remember how we mentioned that I had actually recorded an episode with some friends in Canada while I was there? Well, now you get to hear it.
Oh, this is the podcast where we drink with the Mormons, strange and peculiar people they may be. Come hear the stories we were taught in our childhood. Come drink and join our eternal family. Come drink and join our eternal family.
Welcome to the Drunk Mormon Podcast. This is the podcast where we get drunk and talk about people who never get drunk, which are Mormons. I'm David John Banks, and I was raised Mormon. And you are?
I am Trisha Gillis, and I was not raised Mormon.
You've never been Mormon a day in your life?
I'm a never Mormon.
And you're here subbing for Lauren because where are we?
We are in Vancouver, Canada.
We're in fucking Canada. And here I am in Canada, and the people I'm with are like, hey, let's record an episode of your podcast. So, great, here we are. That's what we're doing. We're recording this on my iPhone, so The audio isn't going to be necessarily as good as normal, but we're...
Good enough.
Good enough. We're having a fun time. So, thanks, Trisha, for joining this journey.
Yay, I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here. Every time we have someone new, we ask them two very specific questions.
Oh boy, okay.
So you can just answer these as briefly as possible. You already know the answers.
Okay.
It'll be easy. 1, what is your relationship to Mormonism? And 2, what is your relationship to alcohol?
Excellent question. I've had a friend who was Mormon in high school, so I went to church with her once, or temple with her once. And then, what is my relationship with alcohol? Boy.
When did you start drinking?
When I was in grade 8.
Wow. What was your first drink?
It was beer, and I hated it, but I forced it down because I was at like a frosh slosh.
Don't know what that means, but I'm laughing.
Yeah, it's like initiation into high school.
Got it.
Yeah.
Oh, frosh slosh playing off a freshman. But you can't say fresh slesh.
That's not easily rhymable. Yeah.
Or more like a fresh mesh.
Fresh mesh.
Fresh mesh.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
I didn't do that. I didn't drink until last July. First time I ever drank alcohol. True story.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I'm a lightweight. We'll get there. Put a pin in
I was
that.
going to say, yeah.
And then you hear other laughter in the room, which is our guest this week. I have a Mormon here to help, who's also the person who's making us record this right now. Introducing first time on the podcast, Kyle Warren.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You dork. So Kyle, this is your first time on the podcast, so same questions go to you. What's your relationship to Mormonism? What's your relationship to alcohol?
Good questions. Thanks for asking. So, my relationship to Mormonism, I was raised Mormon. I grew up in the Northwest Territories, where my parents were the only Mormons in the whole Native community.
Wow.
And in fact, we got a letter from the first presidency because my dad would let me pass the sacrament to my family. And they said, he can't do that. He's 5. He doesn't have the authority.
So your entire little family branch was given underage.
Yeah, underage passing of the sacrament. I remember being very disappointed. I remember I was like, this can't. Kyle, enough.
Who told on you?
The ensign. Actually, what happened was the ensign came up to
The Ensign is a Mormon magazine.
Yeah,
It's like People magazine, but for Mormons.
Really?
And
Are there
it's
celebrities?
not for normal people.
so they came up to do a thing about our family, like living in, like, keeping the faith in this little community out of nowhere. But my sisters both wanted nothing to do with it, and I was like 5. So the picture is hilarious. We still have it of my oldest sister just having the most like frowny, what the fuck am I doing here? And my middle sister like trying to keep the peace, and my dad like just looking sweaty and exhausted. So the ensign found out from the church found out from this ensign article that I was passing the sacrament as a 5-year-old.
Do you still have the letter they sent you?
I think it was a call or a letter. I don't.
Oh,
no,
wow.
I don't. But
I'd frame that. Put that on the wall. Your first infraction.
Yeah, and that started my.
Which segues to our next question. What's your relationship to alcohol?
Also a good question. Because I grew up largely in Canada, alcohol and Canada are basically synonyms, right?
Yes.
But I also had that Mormon side where I would fight the alcoholism and watch it being a lot of people are obviously having a great time all around me. So I remember the first time I caved was at the Beaverton Fall Fair in Ontario, where my friend Nick Coote had some alcohol called Barrel Wash that his dad made in his bathtub, and he gave it to me in a Coke bottle, and I took a swig of it, and I've never danced better. Yeah.
Wow.
So ever since then, I thought, this is fun. Drinking this equals fun.
And how old were you at that time?
17. Like, I didn't drink for a while.
Yeah.
I was a late bloomer. In Canadian terms. In Mormon terms, I was embryo. But it's interesting to talk to the two different worlds, you know?
Wait, what's the legal drinking age in Canada?
It's 18 and 19, depending on the province.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
depending on how much your parents loved you.
I don't know. Where I grew up, it was 19, but we would just drive to the other side of the border. Like, we'd go to Manitoba.
Who would drive you?
We were 16 at the time, and I had a fake ID for a while. Yeah.
How'd you get that?
A friend I worked with at Walmart looked vaguely like me, and at the time, this is so bad.
You worked at Walmart?
Yeah, Saskatchewan had no like computer registration of any of their identification, so you could go with all their like birth certificate and social insurance number and get another ID made with your picture.
No.
But in this case, she was actually just happened to be that she was like a nondescript brunette girl, and so no one questioned it.
That's great. I never had a fake ID because it just wasn't an issue for me. I never needed one.
Right.
I was a
Where'd
pretty
you grow
straight
up?
edge kid. I grew up in a military family. We moved all over the place, and the church was the same everywhere we went.
True.
Mormons in the military.
It's a very small world.
I bet.
We had people that we knew in Oklahoma who I then went to high school with in Virginia later, like multiple moves later. Anyway, so here I am in Canada. This is my first time in Canada proper because I went to like Niagara Falls when I was like a little kid, which I'm like, one, I don't remember it, and two, it was Niagara Falls, so it doesn't count. We have me, the ex-Mormon. We have
Yes.
the non-Mormon. We
Non-Mormon.
have the guest. There's one thing missing.
Oh, what's that?
Is we got to get drunk.
Okay.
So what are you guys drinking? What are Canada
I know.
beers?
This is a craft beer. It's called Fuggles and Warlock. It's a brewery out in Richmond, and we're drinking. Kyle, what's the name of this beer?
It's a strawberry wit beer. Now, the Fuggles and Warlock is kind of the Dungeons and Dragons of craft beer, meaning that they kind of have a stay in your mom's basement, but you're still having a good time thing going on. The brewers of this beer I don't know that they've ever washed their hair, but that has nothing to do with the quality of the beer because it is fantastic, and every time I drink it, I just feel good.
Aw. Well, I don't like beer, so I'm drinking Canadian whiskey.
Woo!
Gibson's Finest is the brand.
How many years was it aged?
12. 18 is better. 18 is better from what I've read.
I think just the longer is better, as far as I know.
Well, there's an 18 and there's a 12.
Well, if there's like an 18 versus a 40, is the person like, oh, 40? No. I'll take the 18.
Well, the 18 was very well reviewed in 2018, actually.
Really?
Uh-huh. Kyle, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking a Philip Solaris White Peach Ale. Delicious. A bit hoppy. You know, you wouldn't expect hops from an ale. Mm-hmm. But it's definitely loosening the old tongue, if you know what I mean. So here, let's
Cheers.
have a cheers
Salut.
Great. Cheers.
to
all around.
Canada.
To staying in Canada for a little while.
So, you're gay.
Yes.
You're out.
Oh, how did you know?
How did you
what?
know?
Did someone say something? What?
So, you started drinking last July.
Uh-huh.
And then, is that when you came out as well?
Mm-mm.
No?
I've been out for a while.
A while?
Yeah, I've been out
How
for
long?
a while.
So we had a scene in acting class, and the line is like, "Oh, what are you just gonna kill me?" And then Trish, of course, delivers the line,
Can't even do it.
"What are you gonna do?
Tell
Kill
me
me?"
one more time. You deserve to be killed.
You're not even doing it justice. So every time she would do it, I commit, fellas. I
Oh
commit
my
to
gosh.
a scene. And Trisha would say it like this, "You deserve to be killed!" And every time she'd say it, I couldn't help it.
It
Laugh
was like
my
a little bit of Arnold Schwarzenegger.
You
when he
deserve
said,
to
It's not a tumor.
And even today, if I'm having a bad day, I think of Trisha saying, "You deserve to be killed," and things just seem okay.
That's inspiring to me.
Yeah.
Cheers to that.
Cheers! I have this picture of my mom and my sister's dog as my screensaver.
Aww.
It's the cutest.
What kind of dog is that?
It's a golden doodle.
Oh.
They're hypoallergenic.
Yeah, but he was born blind.
Oh, why?
Inbreeding,
Wow.
probably.
God didn't love them?
Yeah, exactly.
Right, so we started paying for people who were dying in like the 70s when America just let them die at the doorstep.
It was, and it's
Oh, you
who
mean at
started
the
that?
the genesis of our HIV/AIDS crisis?
Exactly.
You were actually letting
we
people
took care of
live.
it. Yeah,
Me
yeah,
too.
yeah.
Wow, crazy.
We're like, this is a problem. Let's take care of this. Whereas Americans are like, no, God wants them to die. I think is what the main.
I think that's a kind of our national motto.
Are there any gospel principles that you believe to still be true or accurate?
Me personally?
Yeah, I do.
Either of you, yeah.
What?
Kyle?
Tell
Do
me.
you want to go first?
You go first.
Okay. I believe the principle of just providence, meaning hard work, reap what you sow kind of principle. Of stepping up to your responsibilities, taking care of others will enrich your life. Just like basic human, and in hindsight, humanist principles that Mormons teach. But the thing about Mormonism is it gives you a kind of a structure to do those kind of things. Like to help someone in the Mormon church is super simple because you all kind of have to do it. Like the elders quorum, so a class you go to, we're going to help sister so-and-so move on Sunday. So this like woman that would have no one else to turn to all of a sudden has like 20 dudes that'll come help her move who has no money or super down and out. So you go help her move, you feel good because you help somebody. But if you're not a Mormon, how do you go help this poor woman who does, it's harder to find a way to so easily. Like, yes, you can, but you have to like really search out those service opportunities.
Yeah.
Whereas in Mormonism, it was really all structured to make it happen very simply. I miss that about Mormonism.
Helping people?
Like helping people so easily and accessibly, and people who actually really needed it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like in holidays in my family, my dad would always have, because in Mormonism there's always a lot of people that need help because obviously they've been brought in. These down and outers are brought in by the vast missionary effort.
Yeah.
And so their names get plugged into the Mormon system. So every holiday I can remember, I'd be with my dad with turkeys, giving it to these people that have nothing else going on. I don't know how else you would know who needed a turkey. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How do you know who needs a turkey if you don't have like a Mormon database of who needs the turkey? Does that make sense?
Yeah, but there's other charities that do that I could point you to that you could volunteer at if you're interested.
Well, like
How often did you do that though?
have you ever done it?
Yeah, we did like an adopt a family at Christmas, and there's a whole in Regina, Saskatchewan, where I grew up.
Yeah, but how many times? Sorry, can I jump in here real quick?
So Will Thomas is here, who was our guest way back when episode 7 we talked about Mormons settling Las Vegas.
Sorry, I don't mean to
How
cut
often
in because
did you
I
do
really
this?
want to know because
Yeah.
like for me it was like every week.
Every week.
Yeah,
Really?
every week.
Okay, so that's a much higher frequency than what I did. But I think there's people in Vancouver that volunteer in the downtown east side on a really regular basis.
The thing
That's
about
true.
doing it through your congregation is that it was very much the sense of community and family.
Yeah.
And so anyone, like, you're going and helping these people who you see every week. And I don't know, it like would breed sort of this sense of fellowship, of family, of community, and sort of help you feel connected to everybody versus volunteering through either just like throwing money at a charity or going and spending a few hours. Like, you connect to those people for a few hours, but then often you don't see them again.
Right.
Which, not that that's an invalid way, it's just a different way of contributing. There was a way that service inside of your Mormon congregation felt very much, I don't know,
family.
it felt like you were taking care of your own versus taking care of strangers.
Yeah.
I also feel like when I was an active Mormon, I was less likely to participate in any sort of external service opportunities because it's like, well, I'm already doing it for my church. Like, that box is ticked.
Yeah.
And so there was a difference. Sometimes it wasn't like me wanting, like, yes, I would feel nice if I helped people, and the idea especially was nice to just sort of imagine, even if sometimes doing it was like hot, sweaty, or annoying. But
They're playing at the Commodore Room on Thursday, by the way. Hot, Sweaty, and Annoying. Great band. I know the bassist. If you guys want a backstage pass.
is that a euphemism?
You never know with Kyle. You never
It's
know.
always a euphemism.
I poured like a good little amount.
Good. So are you drunk now?
Oh,
This is the 18th time DJ B's been drunk.
I dip in real easy.
I like this podcast has quickly descended into.
Oh God, I like it, but it's rough.
What is the
She's trying to bring it
gospel
along.
message that you still resonate
Me?
with? Yeah.
Okay, well, this is like, I'm gonna get deep, but so one of the big things about Mormons is they're always like, we're Christian, and people are like, no, you're not. I'm like, yeah, we are. We believe in Jesus. They're all about that Jesus guy. And so one of the big ways that Mormons specifically look at Jesus's role in like the eternal play, is this thing called the atonement. And so the atonement was where Jesus went and basically stood in as a proxy for the sins of the entire world. So he goes to the Garden of Gethsemane and he kneels down and he prays and he's like, let this cup pass from me, otherwise I'll do what I agreed to do. And then he takes on the pains and sorrows and sins and shame of everyone who ever lived and whoever will live and bleeds from every pore, da-da-da-da-da-da.
Okay.
And then he's crucified. Mormons believe that the real thing that happened was him there in the garden, not on the cross. That was like an aftermath, but like there in the Garden of Gethsemane where he bore the pains of the world.
Okay.
Or there's a common parable told in like Sunday school where there's this class of people, and it's back in the time when students disobeyed, they would get like, smacked or whipped.
Right.
And so there's this, they all agreed that on class rules and what the punishments were, and one of the rules was you can't steal, and if you steal then you get whipped.
Okay.
And so there's this little boy who every day he came to school he just wore this big gross ugly coat, and then one day someone's lunch goes missing, and they find out it was this little kid who stole the lunch because he didn't have one because he was poor, and so he had to go get whipped because that was the rule they all agreed to. And they made him take off his coat, and when he takes off his coat, he's just so skinny, and his clothes are so raggedy because he's poor and he has nothing. He came from a very not well-off family.
Right.
And the boy whose lunch he stole from felt so badly about what was about to happen that he raised his hand and he said, I will take Johnny's whipping. And so he goes to the front of the class and he gets whipped by the teacher instead so that Johnny doesn't have to. And that's sort of the idea of like, that's what Jesus did for everybody. So Jesus took on the suffering so that everybody in the entire world doesn't have to. And a lot of times the way this story plays out in your like everyday life is you just feel guilty and shame for everything you do because you're making Jesus hurt. But what I always felt about it, especially growing up, was that this idea of the atonement, that if you sin, you can repent and your sin is forgiven, isn't a cautionary tale about why you shouldn't sin. And as I always thought it was like off of sin. It was more about like, you have the freedom to make mistakes because you're covered. It's like this insurance policy, except your copay is $0, as long as you're like, your intentions are good. So to me it wasn't, oh, don't masturbate. It was more like, hey, this is what you think is right, so go do that. And if you go down this road and find out that you were wrong, that maybe your worldview was a little off, you can kind of come back and try again another way. And you can do that as many times as you want. It's the pursuit of, this is what I think is true, this is what I think is good, this is who I think I am. And you can attempt as many of those theories as you want, because there's this atonement there that gives you the freedom to dare to fail.
Cool.
And I like that concept of feeling like I am liberated to make big, bold mistakes versus kind of staying cautious and sheltered and being like, well, I don't know, that might be wrong, so I won't try. I'd rather try and prove myself wrong
Yeah.
and learn from that and grow And to me, that view of the atonement, I still sort of carry with me as part of my personal philosophy. I like this thing that I've sort of found post-religion, where I'm kind of defining for myself what I think makes me a good person, or is like the person I want to be. And then I feel like it's more empowering versus following someone else's checklist. I'm holding myself accountable to my own rules.
Yeah.
The version of the Jesus story that I was taught, if that's real, I don't think you have to believe in Jesus for it to apply to you.
Yeah. Totally.
Let's be honest. Do you guys really believe that Jesus died
Was a
for our
historical
sins?
figure?
No, not was a historical figure. Died for our sins. Like God had a son with Mary, and Jesus, it was his son. To me, the clear answer is no.
But I think there's a story that was
believe
created around this individual's life that was very well told, and told in different ways to create a belief system that a group of people wanted people to have.
But do you believe it?
Do I believe Jesus died for our sins?
You think Jesus is God, the guy who created, like a guy. Number one is such a like a man-made conception of the universe.
No, I believe personally in like a whatever you want to call it, source energy, the universe, things that we cannot explain or understand or begin to like really contemplate or discuss in like human words. It has to be
explaining
experienced.
physics to an ant.
It has to be experienced. It's like I practice meditation and prayer and yoga and journaling and like spending time in nature are all spiritual experiences for me. It's not necessarily dependent on what like someone wrote down in a book and is telling me what it takes to be a good person. You know what feels good and you know what feels bad to you. Yeah. Truly.
Yeah.
It's about being honest with yourself, to me.
I like that.
To me, Mormonism is a clear derivative of like early Christian values with a treasure hunter from New York.
Joseph Smith.
Yeah, Joseph Smith, like a treasure hunter from New York that's like just happened to catch hold. Like that was the weird religion in the 1800s during some weird Renaissance period that caught hold for some reason.
Right.
And maybe he was a charismatic figure with a lot of influential people. Then they went out west. Mm-hmm. But in hindsight, not a description of the universe as we see it.
Yeah, I don't know.
And the fact that the real miracle isn't Joseph Smith, is that it caught hold with so many people.
So fascinating.
That's the most fascinating thing to me.
How fast did it rise? Like, Mormonism
that's a good question.
I don't know if this is true, but I've heard that this is the first time in history where it's actually been declining.
We'll fact check it, correct it in a future episode.
For me, the internet was a huge factor in me realizing how ridiculous Mormonism is.
Well, because suddenly you can just read things firsthand instead of...
you're raised that way, your parents believe that. And my parents were converts, and they're not like these guys whose families have been Mormon for a while, I'm guessing. I don't know. Yeah. So as a convert, there isn't that anchor. Right. So I'm more easily making like...
my family is Mormon for generations and generations.
Pioneer stock.
Yeah.
Pioneer stock.
Whereas mine aren't, so I can be like, this is fucking crazy. What are you guys doing?
Did your parents
My mom
convert?
converted, and then my dad converted a year later, clearly because my mom put pressure on him.
Sure.
I'm not Mormon, just they are Mormon. Just
your parents are still Mormon, or just your mom?
They are, but I've had conversations with my mom, and she agrees with me, but she's just too far in.
Right. It's a big part of her life.
It's a huge part of her life.
There's different things people get out of it. For
I'm
some people, religion isn't even so much as something you hold yourself accountable to, so much as a social structure. I don't know that my parents have friends outside of church.
Yeah, and like, if we're talking about parents, like, I think my parents could benefit from some sort of, like, cult-like community. I hope they don't listen to this, but, like, because they're very much in their own thing. You know what I mean?
When I came out to my parents, I asked them if they knew any other gay people, and the answer was no.
Wow.
I was the only one. Crazy. I'm sure they do now, but back in 2008...
That's when you came out to your parents?
I think that's when it happened.
And how did they react?
My dad said famously, now it all makes sense.
Yeah.
My mother was very upset because she had gone through my old room and found a collection of notes I had passed in high school, many of which were to girls, and was like, okay, well, if you're passing notes to girls, you can't be gay. And was like very sad and hoping that it was not true, because she said to me that it meant that I couldn't have the thing that was the most wonderful part of her life, which was her relationship with my father, which is both sweet and a little demeaning of the possibility of gay people experiencing love.
So awful, yet sad.
And we have come a long way as far as that relationship and understanding is concerned.
Yeah.
What's the big Mormon thing? If your kid is gay, you can't. What's that? The big thing that's controversial?
Oh yeah.
There was this big controversy in 2015, November 6th/5th. It's the 5th or the 6th of November. There was a policy leaked from the bishop's handbook, which is this manual that the bishop is the head of a local congregation, and their manual was basically like all the rules. So like this is like a troubleshooting guide, like, oh, someone's doing this, how do I react to this situation? And it tells you. And someone leaked pages from it that outlaid a new policy that if a child had a gay parent that was in a gay relationship, that child was not allowed to be baptized or ordained to any of the like youth rites of passage until they were 18, at which point they could then be baptized if they disavowed their gay parents' relationship.
It said disavowed. Their gay
Disavowed.
parents was holy fuck.
So whether they're living with that parent or they never see that parent because maybe they were like straight married and then were like, oh, let's be honest here, this isn't working. They cannot participate in the same things that all of their peers are participating in. So they are forced to be ostracized until they're 18. And the exchange that they can make is they can embrace Mormonism if they effectively fuck off their parent.
That's awful.
Yeah.
Awful.
It's awful.
And they doubled down on it recently too.
It just doesn't make any sense to me. How then anyone could believe that would be at all in line with what you were talking about and what you were talking about service and kindness.
I know, it's weird.
Two things seem really contradictory.
Another thing I've had recently, there's been a lot of people trying to change the Mormon church. For example, women have said, so the authority body, the governing body are all men, because they have to have the priesthood. So the women in the church have been, especially younger women, have been like, we need to change this. Mm-hmm. So there's men and women. So they're trying to change the church.
So that women can also be ordained to the priesthood,
and
which is basically the authority to act with the power of God on earth. It's like the big old fucking car keys.
And my thing is like, if you really like, don't change it. Just don't be Mormon. Just get away from it.
My experience,
and that's the same with the gay thing. Is like, don't make them accept. Let them know like what you're doing, because it's all fucked up.
But you also diminish the fact that there are people who, and correct me if I'm wrong, anyone,
sure,
who are like deeply invested in this, but conflicted, and especially in Utah, where like, say like gays, right? Like, oh, you're gay? Why don't you just leave? Right? Well, why don't you just leave? I mean, that means you don't get to be with your family in heaven for eternal, like, eternally.
Do you think they'll be with their family in heaven?
I don't.
So you're subscribing to the lie.
No, but I'm just saying they believe that.
My departure from the Mormon church was very slow and gradual. I had different phases. There was this phase of like, okay, well, I'll be gay and Mormon. I'll do both. And I'll be this shining example of cohabitation, of like, hey, here's a world where we can all coexist. Peace, love, coexist, bumper sticker, right? That didn't work, so it's like, well, before I leave, let me start raising my voice. Let me start being a voice of reason, so hopefully I can leave the campsite better than I found it. I think that's where a lot of people operate, is in this place where, hey, I don't know that I believe in this, I don't know this is true, but this is my community, this is my family. Because Mormonism is very consuming, so when you grow up in it, you feel like every person in your ward is your family, and you don't necessarily want to just shit on them and leave, because you do want to make it better, because you do want it to work, because you do believe in this idea.
Yeah.
Holding for flesh.
So, you're trying to make a difference in your community, right?
Yes.
And at a point,
An
it just
inherently
doesn't.
misogynistic, homophobic community.
You're not wrong, but keep going.
And it just doesn't work.
So for me, Mormon for generations, and like we were in the military, so we moved around, but even still, somehow everyone I knew, all of my extended family were Mormon. I went to school for 8 years because of depression, and everyone I knew was Mormon, every single person. So for me, leaving Mormonism wasn't just not going to church anymore, it was saying goodbye to my entire social life. And that is genuinely terrifying for some people, for many people. Leaving isn't a small thing for everyone. For some people, it's a major thing, and their impulse to save their community is greater than their impulse to build a new one, because that almost seems like an easier task. If someone doesn't subscribe, I believe that they should leave, but I also understand that it might be on their timeline.
So my advice is
Yes.
don't change Mormonism. Get as far the fuck away as you can. If your family doesn't dig it, live your life, man. And,
find a new family.
But then
Found
that
family's
comes
a real
to-
thing.
they'll come
Like,
around.
is there a human desire to have this religious connection? And
There's a human desire
Yeah.
for two things: purpose and a connection to a picture bigger than yourself. And religious communities can sate those
both of
those desires because they answer those questions.
Well, if you've heard...
And they
Two
provide...
birds, one stone.
They give you the answer. You don't have to find it yourself. When I left Mormonism, I had to answer both of those questions from scratch, which was a difficult recipe to
bet.
devise. I see leaving Mormonism like you're
No.
clinging onto the edge of a cliff. You're dangling.
Yeah.
And you're afraid to let go because you'll fall, and you don't know if you'll survive the fall. And what happens is when you finally let go, you realize that your feet were inches above the ground.
Yeah, that's exactly true. That's a great analogy.
No.
I
Picking
am
up what
like
you've thrown down.
15 beers deep. Blackout almost.
Yay!
I'm making sense.
I can confirm that.
I think I agree with you, Kyle, that the true answer is it's a sinking ship. You cannot save it. All you can do is try and be a visible example of success in leaving.
Yeah. Totally.
Because people are hurting because they don't think leaving is an option. Because they don't know other people who have left, who have sacrificed and said goodbye to their family and been disowned, and are still finding happiness and value and life and a new family and relationships and all these wonderful things that we all want. You might not find it in the way that the Mormon narrative teaches you. You might not have that romantic comedy life, but you can find true fulfillment and happiness. I've never been happier.
Yay.
And also, I've never been happier than I've been in Vancouver. This is genuinely a happy place, and I've had enough whiskey that I don't feel embarrassed.
I love
to admit it. Like,
So
I literally
happy.
have put a lot of thought into like moving here,
Yeah.
and secretly finding out how much people pay for rent. And
DJB, you can stay at my
As
place
long
as long
as
as
you
you'd
want.
like, sir. Until you figure it out.
So here's the thing.
Yeah.
There was a brief version of a lesson. I love this conversation we have, so we're going to keep this.
Yeah.
But to sort of tie in the Canada theme.
Yeah.
Kyle, do you know much about how Mormons are involved with Canada? That's the topic of the lesson, is Mormons in Canada.
I do.
What do you know,
A little
Kyle?
bit.
Who were the first Mormons to enter Canada? Do you know?
Fuck, I don't know that.
Can I tell you the answer?
Yeah.
It was in the winter of 1829 and 1830. The Mormon Church was officially founded in 1830. Prior to this, they had the book written by hand, but they needed it to be published. And there was this big search for funding. Where are we going to get the money for this? And there was a main guy named Martin Harris who had a lot of money, who ended up funding the whole production of 5,000 copies of the first printing, which is an enormous amount of books.
Yeah.
There were not, I don't know if there were 5,000 people within 100 miles of where they printed them in New York. But before they had that secured, two guys, one named Oliver Cowdery, who helped with the translation of the Book of Mormon, and a guy named Hiram Page, who later became one of the witnesses, or maybe he already was one of the witnesses of the Golden Plates, which was that golden book that Joseph Smith dug up. They visited Canada searching for funding, specifically Upper Canada, north, you know?
Upper Canada? That's an antiquated thing. Upper Canada is
Can I
now
cut in here
Ontario.
real quick?
Ontario!
While I was in the bathroom, did you just agree that you would let him live with you? And
No!
what? You
Yes.
said no. He said yes.
As he can live in these lives he wants till he sorts his shit out.
Why are you offering him to live here, huh?
You can live here too.
Oh, okay.
Am I not allowed to make friends?
I'm just jealous right now that I'm not the center of attention.
You know I'd let you.
Yeah, all right. You let me.
According to Wikipedia, the first Mormons to enter Canada
Was William Brinkhurst.
was Oliver Cowdery and Hiram Page in the winter of 1829, spilling into 1830, when they came to what is now called Ontario, Canada, which is that where you're from?
Well, Northwest Territories, I guess.
Oh, okay. Represent. They were looking for funding for the Book of Mormon. Guess who the first official missionaries were? To
Joseph, Elder Joseph, and Elder Smith.
Technically, you're correct. Joseph Smith's
his brother. It's
Joseph
his brother.
Smith Sr., his dad.
What?
And Don Carlos Smith, who was his youngest brother.
I can't imagine telling Bill Warren, "Hey,
They
Billy, I need you to go." My dad won't like.
They were the first official missionaries, and
Canada?
they served.
Is this a home podcast?
Yeah.
I'm
Well, now it
so
is because
drunk.
we're doing it now. This is a podcast that we're doing.
It's
Okay, moving on. In 1850, there were 2,500 Mormons in Canada.
What's up?
But when Joseph Smith died, all the Mormons went to Salt Lake City, and a lot of the Canadian Mormons migrated there as well. And that meant that by 1861, there were only 73 Mormons recorded in Ontario. So, guess how many Mormons are in Canada today?
815.
1,000?
Jerry, John, Joseph.
I served my mission in Canada. That's how I know Kyle.
You did?
We're
Cut
quickly
the shit,
devolving.
Fucker.
We're quickly devolving. In 2011, it was recorded that there were 182,415 Mormons in Canada. Kind of a surprisingly low number, considering how big
Say that
Canada
again,
is.
815.
182,415. That's
Yeah.
it.
That seems
That's,
low.
I think this building.
That's this city.
Can I mention something though? That in Canada, the Canadian government makes the church show their finances when in the U.S. they don't.
No
and so,
way.
yeah, you probably don't know this.
I don't.
So they know exactly where the funding's going because they have to show the Canadian government. So in the U.S. they found out
That's
that
not an
all the
exaggeration.
tithing money was going to BYU to their sports programs. So people paying tithing in Canada, you're funding like BYU basketball, football.
Wow.
But thanks, Canada.
We've gotten
For a
so
while, you
drunk
big
on
bastard.
Canadian alcohol that we are quickly devolving. So we're going to wrap this up with the best part of any Mormon lesson.
It's the activity.
The activity. Any good Mormon lesson has an activity. And so we have an activity today. And today's activity is called Facts About Canada.
Facts
Oh.
about Canada.
Bit condescending, but fair enough.
Yeah. So we're doing some Facts About Canada.
Yeah.
This is a game for the Canadians in
Yeah.
the room to see
So
how much
wait-
you know about your own country. These are random ass
Oh,
facts.
fuck.
Okay.
If you know all of them, I'll
Hit
be
me.
impressed. Okay, here we go.
Ready.
Ready? Number one. Canada has more blank than any other country.
Happy people.
More blank?
Yeah, there's so many options.
Can I get a
Maple
hint?
syrup?
It is
Erections.
something about the actual country, like the land.
It has the most unpopulated area.
Trees. No, Russia has more unpopular areas than we do.
Maple syrup.
It's not maple syrup.
Canada has the most lakes.
Lakes.
Fresh water.
It is lake. Now there are 10% of the world's forests are in Canada.
Yeah.
It has 1/3%.
But Canada has more lakes than any other country with 563 lakes.
How many in America can you swim in without growing a third testicle?
One. And it's shared with Canada. It's one of the Great Lakes. All right. Number two. Ready? Weighing at 9.3 kilograms, or about 20 pounds, the largest blank was ever caught in Nova Scotia in 1977.
It's a salmon.
It's a salmon. Artifact from the Titanic.
I'm thinking like
Crab.
beaver for some
Crab.
reason.
Not the crab.
They don't have saltwater beaver.
No, it's crab. Nova Scotia, they're by the ocean, and they're like
Lobster.
Lobster.
Lobster is correct! We have one more question.
Grudgingly.
Dwayne Johnson was recently revealed to be the highest paid actor in the United States.
In the world.
He shares a nickname with which Canadian province?
Newfoundland.
Unfortunately,
It's
Kyle's right.
Newfoundland.
Unfortunately, Kyle's
Newfoundland
right.
and Dwayne Johnson are both called
my foundation.
The Rock, which is a firm foundation. Anyway, so I don't know the score, so everybody wins.
Hey, socialized medicine.
But anyway, that's our activity, and that's our lesson this week.
Yay!
Clap.
So, Trisha,
Yeah.
I've had so much fun meeting you and
I've
having you here.
had so much fun meeting you. Thank you so much for having me.
And Kyle, thank you for being here as the guest and also the person who pulled this podcast episode together.
Hey, it was my absolute pleasure, and I loved every single minute of it.
Good to know. And Will, thank you for taking a phone call right now.
Yeah, during our wrap up. Thanks, Will.
We wanted
So-
to see the drunkest wrap up of all time. Put your phone down. There's no time to grind her.
So if you want to know more about Canada or Mormons, feel free to Google that shit. That wasn't our job today. If you have any corrections or fun things to add, you can always find us at drunkmormonpodcast@gmail.com. But until next time, I'm David John Banks.
I'm Trisha Gillis.
I'm Kyle Gillis.
He's not, but... And now we bid unto all
Farewell.
Oh.